Yeah, I think just keeping the squad on his toes, he's acutely aware that the squad was even after 2 or 3 years of his tenure, it was a little threadbare coming off the bench, which he remedied, and he continues to try and strengthen that department. He talked about, Shaqiri had gone, now it's Minamino and Origi, who obviously played a big part, particularly Origi. And he's brought in, it wasn't much money from young Carvalho from Fulham, and obviously Calvin Ramsey from Rangers. They're certainly for the future. And it's going to be interesting to see how Darwin Núñez goes. But I think, about making sure nobody's resting on the laurels. And I think the other thing I took away from it was dealing with something that one or two wanted to paint as a disaster last year was the end of the season. Oh, it's a disaster.
Right.
Oh, Liverpool. No, you have to be in it to win it. The fact that you didn't go over the line, or you should have won the Champions League final because you outplayed Real Madrid, but they maybe just outfoxed you a little bit, you weren't clinical enough, is a realisation that doesn't make it a terrible season, because they were in 4 trophies to win 4 trophies. The league was the one that was a little bit of an outlier because they were so far behind at one point and Man City were so much in control. The fact it went as deep as it did was a bonus for Liverpool. But I think the one that did hurt at the time was certainly the Champions League. But I think he's put that in perspective, and as Stevie said, they move on to this year's challenge.
From City's perspective, Nedum, are they expecting more or less of a challenge from Liverpool this season?
I think for City, they've made a couple of changes themselves, and I think Klopp was right there in terms of saying, change has happened, and even the matchups that he mentioned in terms of those 3 games against Chelsea, they won 2 games through penalties, but they weren't able to beat them through 90 minutes. So some of those teams that maybe were 10, 20 points away in the league, that's a consistency thing, but they do have the ability to be able to win some of those games. So I think for Liverpool, for City, they know that they have to keep getting better. I think if you try and stay the same going into the next season, I think you end up just falling behind. So to see the players that have been brought in by both clubs, the youth in terms of, whether it's like Núñez or whether it's Alvarez for Man City and so on, you're almost trying to future-proof because, the players aren't getting younger, but you can keep getting better. So even though the standard is as high as it is, fair play to them for thinking about the future and thinking we have to try and find ways to get better. And I need to give a mention, actually, to Mark Ogden, please, if possible, because I was so impressed by the fact that he sat down with Jurgen Klopp and just said Mo and Sadio instead of like Mane and Salah. He must be so comfortable in his own skin to be calling them on first name basis. Like, yeah, these are my guys, Mo, Sadio, it must be great for you. Fair play to him for that. That's pretty incredible.
You hate first names.
Well, I do so, Thomas. I think he was been very nice to the other coaches in terms of there is a gap. He's not going to say it.
Right.
Because that's only going to give you potential egg on your face. He's not going to come out and say, yeah, the rest are slacking a bit, which they're not. I mean, Chelsea should financially, and where they've been over the last couple of years with the squad, they should be the closest. But you have to say, I don't think anybody's bridged the gap, but certainly Arsenal and Tottenham so far have spent well on the face of it, and look as if they have improved their own squads. Now, improving your squad and bridging an almost 20-point gap is a completely different kettle of fish. And Jurgen Klopp talked about these tough games against Chelsea, and he talked about how good Spurs were. Well, he wasn't saying that at the time. He was pretty much saying, this is an awful way to play, this is very frustrating. But what Liverpool and City did better than anybody, they bludgeoned everybody else in the league. And it's that consistency thing. Those two had it. But I bet he wishes, for all it's great to pit yourself against the best, I bet he just thinks, because if Guardiola wasn't at City, I would think Liverpool would be favourites for the league. It's tight, but without him, I think Liverpool would be favourites. And he must sit there thinking sometimes, I've built this unbelievable squad at Liverpool. We've turned this club around. The points that we're getting, any other league would be winning leagues, but they have a great squad and a great manager too. It has to be frustrating.
Stevie, what's the biggest concern from a Liverpool perspective going into the new season?
Ooh. I would think Liverpool's only concern is Manchester City, to be honest. I don't think Klopp can complain about the squad he's got. I don't think he can complain about the signings he's made. The truth is that right now, certainly when the last ball was kicked at the end of last season, City were the better side. And they've added Haaland in particular, and Calvin Phillips. So I think Liverpool's only worry is going to be City. You know, Klopp has been very nice to everybody else, but the truth is he's not sitting going, well, if we finish above Spurs, then we'll win the league. Or if we finish above Chelsea, we'll win the league. No, he knows. He knows the team that he's got his sights on, and it's Manchester City. And they have to start well. They can't, you know, they can't afford to get themselves in a position the way they did last year where they're what, 10, 12 points behind and looking out of the title race and fighting their way back and everybody's saying, oh, well done. You can't do that. If you want to win the Premier League title, you start at the beginning and you keep it together all the way through. So that's his only concern is Manchester City, and can they keep it going from the first whistle to the last.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.